If you watched my last video on DMSO, you already know it got a ton of views. What you didn't see though was my inbox afterwards and the comments and messages that all had the same theme. Not whether DMSO worked really, but the more practical stuff. Where do I buy it? How do I dilute it? How do I apply it? What are the right amounts? So I'm gonna walk you through that entire process step by step today. That's what this video is gonna be about. From purchase all the way through to how I apply it for neuropathy relief in a way that's simple, controlled, and realistic. So let's go. Let's start at the beginning. This is where a lot of confusion comes in because if you search DMSO online, you're going to see a wide range of products, prices, claims. Some of them look pretty reasonable and some of them definitely raise questions. And I'm not here to tell you where you have to absolutely buy DMSO, but what I do want to show you instead is how I evaluate a DMSO brand so you can make an informed decision yourself. Now, when I'm looking at DMSO, I'm paying attention to a few very specific things. And just as importantly, I'm also noticing information that's not there or vague. And I'll show you what I mean. So you'll see some brands emphasizing amber bottles to protect from UV light. But that's more important when you're purchasing things like castor oil or substances that will degrade from UV exposure. DMSO is different. It's chemically stable, so clear glass is commonly used. Amber doesn't hurt, but it's not a requirement. And this is something that you'll see a lot of. Features being emphasized that sound important, but don't really tell me anything about the product itself. That doesn't mean that packaging doesn't matter. It just means I'm looking at functional packaging versus the aesthetic cues. So in this case, what matters is that it's stored in compatible materials, typically glass with a solid seal, and nothing that suggests interaction with the container itself. So I'm less focused on how the packaging looks and more focused on whether the information and materials are specific and appropriate for the product. For example, I want to see purity stated plainly, not just words like high purity or premium, but an actual percentage. I also pay attention to whether terms like pharmaceutical grade or lab tested are actually explained, because for consumer DMSO products, those terms are used pretty loosely. Pharmaceutical grade in particular is really a marketing term. It's not legally enforceable as a label for consumer products. It's borrowing language from an industry with very strict purity standards.
So wait, does that mean...
So when I see a phrase like that, I'm not taking it at face value. I'm looking to see what information is supporting it. And what that explanation looks like in practice is specificity. For example, a meaningful pharmaceutical grade claim will usually include at least one of a few things: an actual purity percentage like 99.9%, or a standard that's being referenced, such as USP, which stands for United States Pharmacopoeia, or a clearly stated use context, like for laboratory use or research purposes. But if all I see is pharmaceutical grade DMSO, that's not really an explanation. It's branding. And the same applies to the phrase lab tested, which by itself doesn't mean very much unless it's paired with other information, like specificity as far as what it was tested for: purity, contaminants, heavy metals, water content. Sometimes there's even a certificate of analysis or at least a note that one is available on request, if you want to take it to that point. But at minimum, I want to see language that tells me what actually passed. And another subtle thing I pay attention to is the consistency across the listing. So credible products tend to say the same things in multiple places without glaring inconsistencies. You know, like the product trust isn't being heavily carried by hype language. So when a product is genuinely high quality, the label often feels kind of boring. And that's usually a good sign. Also, if a product is trying to position itself as a solution for everything, skin, joints, muscles, animals, household use, then that's also an indication for me to slow down and take a little bit of a closer look. So I really want more straightforward information, no guessing, and less look over here and don't look over here. And now that you've got the product itself, the next piece is handling it safely. Now, this is another area where things tend to get overcomplicated
and off the rails,
depending on where you're sourcing your information.
TikTok.
DMSO does not require a lab setup or special gear, but it does reward a little intention. The two things I care about the most when handling DMSO are cleanliness and control. First, clean skin. So before application, I'm making sure that my hands are clean and dry. No lotions or fancy ingredients that'll leave residue sitting on my skin. And this isn't about fear, it's about predictability. DMSO is a solvent, which means that it carries things with it. So I want to be intentional about what's on my skin at the time that I apply it. And here's something I just want to mention. If you watched the last DMSO video and you ventured into the comments, you'll see that there was a wide range of responses and opinions, let's just say. But one of the most common was that people did not understand what they called fear-mongering. Why are you making me afraid to use DMSO? And the other strong opinion was, I've used this on farm animals and horses, cows, pig, you name it. You throw an animal out there that lives in a barn, and I have had that in the comments with somebody saying, I put this on my blank and I am usually filthy and the animals are too. I never clean them down and they're fine. So I don't understand why all the fear around the prep for DMSO. So let me just point something out. We are not barn animals. We have very different systems. They have different skin, they have different everything. And just because you can use it and your horse is okay, does not mean that you will be. And just because somebody is saying, oh, I've slathered this all over my dogs and my pigs and I was fine and I get it, oh, that's great. You could put 1 million people in a room and not one of them is gonna have the same experience with DMSO. So just be careful when you're reading the comments and taking them at face value. You don't know how long they've been using DMSO. You don't know the circumstances. Were they truly okay, or have they just been using it so long that they don't really remember that they had a lot of skin sloughing and irritation or, other issues when they first started using DMSO. That's all I'm saying. The comment section on YouTube under a video can be the wild, wild west. So for those that are going to watch this video as well and have the same questions and opinions, I'm here to tell you my final word on this is you absolutely need clean skin when you apply it. I'm not saying you need lab level sterility prep. I'm saying you just need to wash your hands with a very plain, mild soap, unscented ivory, or it'll all be okay. I personally use a Castile soap if I'm going to apply DMSO. Don't stress too much about this. Just make sure you have clean hands. That's all I'm saying. And then the second piece of this is what I'm handling the DMSO with. So I stick to simple, non-reactive materials, glass, stainless steel, nothing fancy, nothing disposable, nothing porous. So when I'm measuring or mixing, I'm doing it slowly and deliberately. Again, not because it's dangerous, but because rushing leads to mess, mess leads to uncertainty, and then uncertainty is what makes people nervous about using DMSO. Now, most issues that people run into happen when the concentration or the application techniques kind of overshoot what the skin can handle comfortably. Meaning they either use too much, they escalated concentrations too quickly, or unintentionally applied it over too large an area. And the next step is dilution. This is where a lot of people overthink things too, so I'm going to keep this very simple and visual. Dilution is really just about control. We're trying to control the predictability of what we're mixing here. In practice, dilution exists on a spectrum. And the tool that I'm sticking with for mixing is a teaspoon. This keeps things really simple without getting into fractions or really tiny measurements. So I have distilled water here and my DMSO. And as I'm mixing, as I said, I'm going very slowly. And DMSO and water are what we call fully miscible, meaning they want to mix completely, but they don't do it instantly. So when you first drop DMSO into water, it enters as its own localized substance with its own physical properties. And that creates microcurrents as the two substances try to equalize. And the swirling that you see when the DMSO first hits the water is diffusion happening in real time. It's kind of beautiful. DMSO is denser than water, so it bends light differently, and that's what leads to this visual dancing. So you're basically watching the two liquids negotiate with each other in real time, seconds before they fully mix. You'll notice that the consistency stays very light. It's not thick like an oil, but not instantly disappearing either. And that's what I'm looking for. Mixing DMSO and water creates something called an exothermic reaction, which just means it releases a little heat when they combine. And because of this, it's best to start with the distilled water and then add the DMSO into it. This keeps the temperature change a little more gradual, but at the small amounts that we're using here, it's really not a safety issue either way. Also, a note about delivery in the cold. If it's below roughly 64 degrees, then your DMSO may arrive looking a little frosty. It can actually crystallize. If that happens, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the DMSO. You just need to bring it in, let it warm up to room temperature over a day or so, or you can drop it in warm water and it'll turn back into its liquid state fairly quickly. And then with this done, application becomes simple. And here's how I apply it. I'm using bare fingers, clean hands, and a very small amount at a time. So I'm not pouring this onto my skin, I'm placing it. And I start with a small defined area because this gives me more control over where it goes and it keeps it just from running everywhere. And then as I apply it, I'm spreading it gently, not rubbing aggressively or even massaging it in. I'm just spreading a thin layer across the area until it's evenly coated, and then I stop. You definitely don't need to soak the skin, and you don't need to flood the whole section. And I'm watching how it sits on the skin. It'll be a thin film at first, and then this will just gradually absorb. No covering or layering other products on top, and you don't want to touch the area while it's absorbing either. Just let it be. And that's really it. Application doesn't need to feel intimidating. When you focus on quality and you keep the setup clean and you just use small controlled amounts and work in defined areas, DMSO application just becomes predictable in the best ways. And if you want the full dilution range laid out for you with the exact ratios and amounts, then I put that into a written mini guide so you don't have to remember it all. But the fundamentals that you saw here are really what matter most. Just keep it simple, take it slow, and let the process do the work. And before I go, if this cleared things up for you, then I'm really glad. That's the whole point of this channel, actually. If you want to support the work here, then there are a few ways to do that. I have written guides and a membership community. Those keep everything running. It keeps the lights on, actually. But if that's not your style, that's fine too. Just watching, liking, and sharing the videos actually help a lot, tremendous amounts. Probably more than anything, actually. So yeah, you can support us that way too. But thanks for watching and stay healthy and lucid.